and we're going to do a little webinar around Windows 10 Pro. So it's it's going to be intensive 30 minutes ahead of us. We're just going to run through some unique selling points of course, Windows 10 Pro, and why and how we can help customers upgrade. So we'll see. I'll just wait the final 10 seconds before it turn 1 minute past 2, and then we'll see if people drop in the meantime. That's completely fine. But anyhow, if you have any questions, just write them in the chat, and we'll answer them in the end. Since everyone is on listen mode only, you won't be able to say anything, but just write them in the chat if you have any questions at all, or reach out on LinkedIn or whatever you prefer if you have any questions afterwards. But with that said, I think we can start today's webinar. So as mentioned, Windows 10 Pro, which of course for many of you is a familiar product, and it's not something we are unused to. But Windows 10 Pro is of course a real hero product of ours, and it is one of the best tools I've ever worked with when it comes to staying productive at work and achieving more. So we're just going to look into that, but not only Windows 10 Pro, we want to look into that when you combine it with a modern device, because what we're seeing today is of course a huge shift in demand. We see that a lot of companies are expecting a lot of change, and of course 2020 has been the year that really embodies change. So we're going to look into how Windows 10 Pro with a modern device battles change and battles just being efficient wherever you are, whenever. So of course, and I've shown this slide before for those who have been joining my previous webinars, but just looking into the technology expectations and how they are shifting. Because normally what we do is that we look at how companies and the economy operated yesterday. And as we all know, just 10 years ago, we probably didn't have a touchscreen phone. We probably only had our files stored locally on our workstation. And today, not tomorrow, it's actually quite the difference. And nowadays we work from anywhere at any time. And I think most people do actually send more emails via their phone whilst at their home than they sometimes do at work altogether. So we just need to be flexible. And as mentioned, 2020 has really been the year that puts this to an edge. So for companies who want to stay relevant and who want to be efficient, it's really important just to have the right operative system. And Windows 10 Pro, in my opinion, is of course the right option to go for there. So just before we get started, I'm actually going to share with you some statistics. And this statistic is for Sweden alone, but the trend is pretty much the same in all Nordic countries. So what you see here, of course, is an empty graph, and you can see a blue dotted line that goes from 80 towards somewhere around 90%. And that is the share of Windows 10 Pro. So in Sweden, we have just above 90% of all users that are on Windows 10 Pro. And that, of course, is only users in comparison with what type of Windows are they using as operative systems. So what we do see is that we are really close to the target, but we still have just a few that are not on Windows 10 Pro. And that might be easy to think that, okay, well, that's fine. We're way over half, and we've come a long way. But looking at the business opportunity, we still have a lot of things we can do. So Windows 7 actually, and Windows 8 actually sums up to around 400,000 users in Sweden alone. This means that we have a great possibility to reach out and to check with our partners and our customers and see what are you using, and if, because it's not a lot of them, it's not a majority that's going to tell you they use Windows 7, but there are users still out there who are using Windows 7, and they could benefit a lot from stepping up and transforming over to Windows 10 Pro. So the business potential is really big, even though we've reached almost the whole addressable market. The final 10% is still a very, very big amount of users. So we, of course, want everyone to be on the most efficient platform there is, which in our opinion is Windows 10 Pro. So looking into the demography of what operative systems they are using, we see that the main share is on Windows 7. And of course, we have to understand that not everybody, there are some prerequisites where they perhaps might be a little bit slower in their transformation, that they have an ongoing transformation and that they're not on Windows 10 Pro yet. But just having the discussion with the customer is really important and helping them transfer even faster and smoother onto Windows 10 Pro, because the gain of being on Windows 10 Pro is huge. And that's what I'm going to go into now. So Windows 10 Pro, of course, is all about working even smarter, because we have a lot of change in requirements, of course, in a security perspective, but also as a demand from customers. They are expecting a lot more from their operative system than they used to do. So by offering them Windows 10 Pro, we provide a platform that's made for this type of work that we're actually conducting in today's economy. You can't just have a platform where you can work from your PC and that's it. You have to have a platform where you can work from anywhere at any time. And it has to be secure, because it is always the most important matter of all companies, I'd say, is to keep your data secure. So by being on Windows 10 Pro, you ensure that no matter what unit the customer's on, they know that their information is safe with them. So for example, if you would have used Windows 7, you know that you can't have the safe OneDrive that comes with Microsoft 365 Business Standard, and you can't use Word on your phone in the safe ecosystem that we offer when you combine Windows 10 Pro with Microsoft 365 on a modern device, because that just ensures that your whole ecosystem is connected and that it's safe, and it's also easy to manage, because that's a big matter which I'm coming into later around how management is dealt with and how much time actually goes into way too time-consuming tasks for small business customers. So with that said, we're going to look into what the modern device can do for you, because Windows 10 Pro is great, according to me, of course. But we, of course, need to have it on a platform that really brings out the full potential of it. Because if we look back 10 years, as mentioned, we used to be on a phone that didn't even have a touch interface. And that is kind of where many companies are with their computers as well. They have very, very old hardware. And then it's of course easy to think, well, it's not that big of a deal, but looking at the tech shift and looking at all of the great inventions that we're seeing, you have a lot of benefits to gain from shifting up to a modern hardware. And it's not only about the performance and the design, that it looks better, that it's thinner and easier, but it's about the experience. How are you using your computer, and how is your computer helping you? Because a modern device is built for the type of tasks and how we run tasks in a modern economy. For example, that you can sit on an airplane and just flip your computer to use it as a touch pad. It is so much better to work with that kind of touch interface instead of just the standardized. But now you have the opportunities, so it's just a huge gain for the customers in that sense. And then, of course, looking into, for example, security, we have a huge gain on the modern devices, just making sure that they have the latest and greatest features in terms of hardware security, but also the platform to support the software security that Windows 10 Pro and Microsoft 365 offers, because altogether you would then actually have a better and safer solution than what you normally would have if you only have, for example, Windows 10 Pro on a legacy hardware. So combining those two is really important, because what we see often is that customers come and they, for example, buy a new hardware, but they don't buy a new operating system. Or the other way around, they buy the new OS, but they don't upgrade their hardware. And there we have a huge business potential. And just talking to customers about this is a very important and big step on the way towards modernizing the way people work all across the Nordics. So the modern devices and the advantages as mentioned are, of course, that it's more flexible, that you can use it in ways that you traditionally would not use a laptop. And it is also boosted by all-day battery power. So you make sure that no matter where you're going, how many meetings you have, you know that your computer lasts the whole day, and you do not have to carry around on a 2-kilogram brick in your computer bag. So it's those kind of small and neat features that just make sure that you can be even more productive from anywhere at any time. And having safety features like privacy screens and stuff like that just make sure that when you work, for example, on the go on your modern device, you know that nobody can steal your information that's on your screen. So those are the kind of great features with the modern device in terms of design and usability. But it's also about how you collaborate with your modern device. So for example, that you share and you use documents together with your colleagues instead of just having them on premises on your workstation. So with a modern device and with Windows 10 Pro, you make sure that you can work from anywhere at any time and any unit, and everything in a safe environment. And whilst we're on the matter, it's also a thing about, for example, getting IT support and how you do that. With Windows 10 Pro, it's easier than ever. And I'm going to touch base upon that in a little, in just a bit. But before that, we're just going to look into, for example, Windows Hello, because that's a solution that makes sure that when you log in, you just have a little bit of a better experience. Traditionally, you'd write down your passwords, or in modern days, you might write them down in your notes in the phone. And of course, there's a lot of passwords to remember, and you want to have them safe. So you want to have hard passwords, and then you just have the risk of writing them down in notes, and then somebody seeing your notes, stealing your notes, hacking your notes, somehow getting a hold of all your passwords, and your company's information can be stolen. And we, of course, want to battle that in our own way. And one of these ways is that with a modern device, you make sure that you have the ecosystem, so you don't have any loose endpoints where people can steal and obtain information. But it's also about providing smart and simple solutions to traditionally more hassled and intricate matters. For example, password management. So with a modern device, you get Windows Hello, which means that your face is actually your password, making it easier than ever to just open your computer and get going in no time by just showing your face to the biometric scanner, which shows, okay, this is Sebastian logging in, welcome, because it's much easier to steal some notes with passwords than it is to steal someone's face. So with that and the hardware concluded, we're going to move in to Windows 10 Pro, because Windows 10 Pro is, of course, the software that enables the hardware to do all the great things, and that enables the employee to achieve what they have to do. And when we're onto Windows 10 Pro, we're actually going to look a little bit into Microsoft 365 as well, just because these two as an ecosystem, they're also not only made for each other to work in the best way possible, but they also require one another. So if you're on Windows 10 Pro, you can't have a too old Office suite. Or for example, if you're on Microsoft 365 Business Standard, you can't be on an older operative system. So by just providing them with the modern solution, you can give the customer an ease of mind knowing that they have the best solution out there. A solution that, for example, Pentagon chooses for all their employees across all devices. And that accounts for something, I'd say. So when we once again look into how the modern workplace has transformed, we see the huge need of Windows 10 Pro. And it's easy to see the needs of Windows 10 Pro when we're looking so much into cloud and looking into multiple devices, and of course, just the simple and great stuff around how an IT pro can help you with remote desktop and manage your computer in a scenario where you can't go get physical IT support. Well, then it's easy to say, of course, we need Windows 10 Pro, but we still have those 10% that are not on Windows 10 Pro yet. And those are the ones that we want to reach, the ones that are on single devices and that don't use the very, very smart solutions that we're offering just yet. But they have a huge upscale and when they switch to a modern solution, and that's why we want to reach them. Because it is easy to think that, of course, cloud and everything like that, yeah, that's something that a traditional IT worker and traditional office worker needs, but not perhaps if you're a carpenter or any other traditional, more labor-intense work or line of business. But in all essence, I think those are the ones that would gain the most from switching to Windows 10 Pro. Because with Windows 10 Pro, they could make sure that they can focus more on their business and less on administrative tasks. And we're actually going to look into some statistics around that later on. Because as we can see, the businesses in 2016, this data is from 2016 actually, but back then they spent 50% more time in collaborative activities. And I'm sorry that I don't have the data for 2020, but it would have been amazing to see what percentage that would have been. But all we can assume or almost know for certain is that that number has risen by a lot. So by these, of course, obstacles that the small businesses are facing, we want to offer the best solution there is, and that is not being on a legacy operative system on an old device, but of course with a modern device and Windows 10 Pro. So, as mentioned, we see how carpenters, for example, or traditional line of businesses which don't have the most updated kind of operative systems, they're spending way too much time on doing administrative tasks. So this actually means that they can spend less time with their customers, generating more business revenue to their company. So instead, by offering them a modern solution where they don't have to sit around and think and work very hard on solving simple issues for an IT expert, they can just use the remote desktop and get the support and help they need in a blink of an eye, just making it so much more simple for customers to achieve more with Windows 10 Pro. But it's also about, of course, that we want to help our customers because, as mentioned, these kind of operative systems are easier to work with and easy to deploy. What do I mean by that? It is the result of something called autopilot. Autopilot is a service that's included when you get a new operative system, which help you to set up your computer with a single click. So you don't have to roll out the whole transformation computer by computer. You can do it remote towards all computers, and it's really, really simple. And that's something that we together with also are very happy to show you and tell you more about, but it's a great service to get your customers started on Windows 10 Pro when transferring from a legacy device or operative system, sorry. And it's also, of course, for the IT expert to be able to manage in an easier, quicker, and better way when, for example, like in 2020, you can't go to the IT help desk. You want to have a solution where you can get the help you need and you can get up and running without having to physically meet. And that is exactly what Windows 10 Pro is offering. And of course, it's about keeping up to date, which is a no-brainer in many cases. But it could also be good to know that we've implemented these new kind of solutions for problems that, for example, Windows 7 users experience, that their computer is rebooting and installing updates midday. Well, that's not a problem with Windows 10 Pro, because what we've done is that we made sure that all updates are sent out and executed during free time, so never during business hours in your region or country. So very smart, clever solutions that just make sure that companies can focus on doing business instead of sitting and watching an update happen. So combining Windows 10 Pro with Microsoft 365 for Business is, of course, the best solution for businesses, because then you have an ecosystem which is fully integratable and that works the best. You make sure that you have the kind of solution that boosts cloud productivity, and you have the type of hardware that boosts the flexibility you need to achieve more at any time. So that is what, in essence, Windows 10 Pro and Microsoft 365 is all about. So why should a small business get Microsoft 365? And for those of you who have joined my earlier webinars, you know that Microsoft 365 Business Standard is one of my favorite products out there. And it's quite easy to see why, because we offer a lot of value and a lot of creativity tools just in what is normally considered an office suite. Microsoft 365 makes sure that you can be more creative and more efficient without having to buy extra apps. Everything's included, everything you might need, and everything you didn't know you needed is there. So for example, Booking, Access, and Publisher, or OneDrive and SharePoint. Just making sure that you can collaborate on Teams and you can achieve more together with your teammates no matter where you are. And then you have the Windows 10 Pro operative system with all the safety feature that comes with, making sure that you, with Microsoft 365 and Windows 10 Pro, actually beat the traditional antivirus programs. So for example, in my case, I don't even have an antivirus. I just use Windows 10 Pro with Defender and Microsoft 365. That is what's protecting my computer, and I feel 100% confident in my computer staying protected with that, because it is actually a very, very competent protection against viruses and stuff like that. So that's what your companies need, according to me. And of course, this would enable companies to actually achieve more and to generate more business, having to focus less on administration and less on spending time getting help with tasks that are easily managed for those who know how to do it. And that can be done via remote desk control. So with this kind of solution, you make sure that you stay relevant and you can focus on generating new business streams instead of just watching an update happen. So that's what Modern Device and Windows 10 Pro with Microsoft 365 is all about. And with that said, I'm actually going to switch over to the final part of today's presentation, which is Office Attach Widget. An Office Attach Widget, for those of you who have joined my previous webinars, you know that it's a tool that helps you sell more without having to do any extra effort. So what we're doing is that we, together with also, we team up and we offer this free of charge implementation of a widget on your website, which reminds customers to buy Office when they buy hardware or operative system. Because what we've seen as a trend and in the statistics is that around 80% of all customers are not aware that Office isn't included. So we of course want to battle this, because it lies in our interest and in your interest as well, that customers feel that they've gotten everything they need to get started. But in many cases today, what happens is that when customers get home their new hardware, with Windows 10 Pro and they open up the computer and they can't see Office. And that, of course, affects the customer journey and just makes them a little less satisfied with their purchase. So what would happen then? Well, one scenario is that they go back on your website and they buy Office for you. A second scenario, which is probably just as likely, is that they Google Office and they buy it from a competitor. So somehow they're going to acquire Office, but it's going to affect the customer journey and their satisfaction with their purchase, but it's also potentially decreasing business revenue for your business. So by implementing this, you make sure to remind the customers and help them to be able to just a single click add to cart their Office package. And what we've seen is that it's around a 44% increase in sales with those where we've implemented the Office attached widget. So if this sounds interesting, you can just contact Evelina Wang at Microsoft, or you can read more on also webpage about this, because it's a great tool, and once again it's completely free, so you've got everything to gain from implementing this widget. And that was on the widget, and the final part is just going to be for those of you who want to learn more, because of course, as we know, knowledge is power. So by going to Expert Zone, we help you to get all the knowledge you might need to face all types of customer questions. Expert Zone is a platform that I'm managing personally and making sure that all the information on there is relevant and applicable for our market. So for example, in those scenarios where you have to Google an answer and you have to think, perhaps you're lucky and you can find your answer on Microsoft page and you know that it's correct, but you don't really know if it's applicable for your market or if it's relevant for your customer segment. But with Expert Zone, we battle this by just having everything curated. So all the content you find on Expert Zone is relevant for Expert Zone, just making sure that you can get the right knowledge to generate more business together with your customers. So Expert Zone, and if you scan the QR code, you'll come immediately on there. But it's a great tool where you can just learn more. And that was actually it for today. I am going to see if I can drop some links in the chat to also page where you can sign up for our next webinar, which is on the 8th of December. And we're going to look a little bit more into a technical aspect of Windows 10 Pro. But with that said, and if there are no questions, I will, and of course, I would love if you leave some feedback. But if you would like to, you can just, let's see. So if you would like, you can just leave some feedback on the QR code, and I will see if I can manage to share the link in the chat. But other than that, I would like to say thank you for joining today's webinar. And I hope you found it good. Let's see. So, to all. Yes, there we have them. So if you want to go to also webpage where you can sign up for the coming webinars, you just do so via the link that's now in the chat. And with that said, thank you for attending today.